microphone is a sensitive instrument and can be dangerous.
Welcome to the Dark Side of Elite. I'm your host, Jack Riggins.
Hey, Jack. Hi, Jack.
In my former life, I was commander in the United States Navy and the Navy SEALs. I love solving problems, and I'm fascinated by what it takes to be elite in anything. I'm more fascinated with its cost. The cost, or the dark side as I call it, is often not talked about. This isn't about SEAL Team, but this will certainly involve some stories from there, because it was my career. But I will take on all random thoughts and opinions, because my brain is very chaotic. And there's chaos in life.
Please tell me they make straight jackets in pink.
So stand by. I invite you to join me so we can cut through all the bullshit and explore this world and its dynamics in order for all of us to grow and make this world a better place.
Hey, on behalf of all of us freaks and weirdos out there, I love you, man. Jack, just keep on rocking.
And like everything I do, I just make this shit up as I go. So welcome.
Jack! Where are you, Jack? Jack! That's my Jack! Hey, come home, Jack!
Welcome to the Dark Side of Elite podcast. Super interesting series of pods coming from Kelly Rose Sarno. The first one you're going to hear today was taped pre-COVID. Kelly has an online community that, frankly, she's a goddess in it. She empowers women and moms and has found a niche to help women embrace motherhood and just climb in whatever ladder they want. She's highly energetic, a lot of fun to talk to, and just has a wonderful backstory. So this will be part one of a two-part coming out this week. The next one was taped after COVID. And it was interesting because she's finding ways to adjust and help people as well. So real cool.
Give me the head nod. My turn to talk.
Yeah, I gave you the head nod. We're on Zoom, man. Like Scott Pappitt, co-host, Dark Side of Elite podcast, master behind the scenes.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. So the cool thing is I met Kelly. I mean, we're probably talking 9 or 10 years ago before she decided to flip her phone around and start a business that kind of grew beyond probably what she even envisioned. But she's the same person I knew 9 years ago as the person that's empowering women today. And it's really cool to see people that have made a jump from tough times to empowering people. And she's still really the same person.
Well, what I like about it is, and obviously thanks for the connect, Scott, is that podding and really Scott's effort to find us what I call balancing guests to my background is the mission and the vision is the same. We're just trying to help people, and we only have like our platform. But Kelly and I would never have met in just normal life circumstances. Yet when you get down and talk, and we talk about her past and struggles, and starting out and then doing this and raising a family, it's so awesome for me because again, the things we try to discuss here on the dark side, they do not discriminate. It doesn't matter what your job title is. It doesn't matter what your upbringing was. We all have struggles, and I think it's important that we talk to a lot of different people in different backgrounds so that it's out there and you get some hope from it. And Kelly's probably one of the best there is in articulating it and providing that hope.
Dark Side of Elite podcast is powered by Performance Mountain.
What I gather is your real platform is empowering women. And in my background in Navy SEALs, I think, well, sometimes we do it to ourselves, but I think we get a bad rep as maybe this all wrongly uber male community. Certainly there's a part of that, but most of us have families and wives. And I know for me, I have 2 daughters. I have 2 boys too, but I love the platform. And a lot of this is new to me. So it's really cool that you're able to reach people and that you do it on such a consistent basis with just kind of everyday normal things. Where did that idea come from, or where did that spark come from?
I have always been like an oversharer on social media is what I call myself. And so way back in like the MySpace days, I would love to just always share about everything. And I love to travel. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I moved to California on a whim, and then I have moved to Yellowstone National Park on a whim, and just kind of always been pretty free-spirited. And so when I decided to join this business and kind of become more of like a social media like influencer, which I think is a pretty strong word, but it came kind of natural to me because I just love to tell stories, and I love to help women like realize their inner confidence, because I think all too often women are just too hard on themselves, you know? So my company really gave me the platform to tell the story, and people just ended up liking to hear about it. So it's been like a dream come true for me, because I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's like makeup and Facebook. And then it turned into something that was so much bigger.
What you were doing, because you had obviously you still have a passion for it, but I mean, at the same time, it has to catch fire and people have to resonate and, you know, start following and chatting.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, like in this social media space, you know, like I've always had that fire inside of me just from, you know, growing up with so much adversity. I just always had that fire to like be better than my surroundings. But in this social media space that I've created, it was after I had my first son. So I wasn't one to like grow up to be like, I'm going to be a wife and have kids. Like I actually never wanted to get married, never wanted to have kids. Now I've been married for 8 years and I have 2 beautiful boys, and I can't imagine life any different. But it was after the birth of my first son, it totally just like changed who I was mentally as a person. And it wasn't necessarily a good thing. I dealt with like a lot of postpartum anxiety, and I dealt with like a few things, you know, like I was an overproducing breastfeeding mom, and it was a lot of pressure. And, you know, I was on unpaid maternity leave. So, you know, that financial pressure to get back to work, and, you know, so all of the things in society that don't give women the support that they need was really the beginning of my platform of a voice for other women, because I was always so outgoing and always so in people's faces that like I realized that I had created a platform where people were going to listen, and to let women know that like it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help when you need it, and it's okay to not like enjoy motherhood and to not enjoy being pregnant. And I think that was really what started my whole journey of like really connecting on a different level with women across the world.
That's epic. Why do you think, well, first of all, I mean, thank you for your open and honest. I mean, I know that's your platform. And by the way, your boys are so cute.
Thank you.
I mean, my kids are junior in high school, then a boy, and then another boy down in 8th grade, 7th grade girl, 5th grade girl. And we're at the point where now looking back at the pictures, you know, they're just so cute. And you've done a wonderful job capturing what I call just the joy of kids, you know, as kids are kids. And that's got to feel good.
I call it the highlight reel, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the highlight reel because, like, let's be honest, it's a shit show and behind the scenes. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm very blessed because they're such good boys. And, like, my oldest is, you know, my husband and I sat down one day, right? And we said, let's write down, and this is a great thing to do with your spouse, in my opinion. So we were like, let's write down, like, the 5 most life-changing days of your life. And not like a life-changing, like, you know, season of your life, but like an actual day that like absolutely changed your life. And for me, it was one of the 5 was giving birth to my first son, Declan. And he's like, well, wouldn't that be like both boys? And I'm like, no, because for me, I didn't know how to wrap my head around becoming a mom. So for me, it was like Declan, you know? And so I was with him home for like 15 months. I rocked my business while I had him home. And so we have that bond that's like just a little different than my second son. Whereas like my husband has that with my second son, you know, and not that I have favorites, but you know, and so for me, it's like Declan is so kind and so sweet and like he loves to snuggle. And then I have Everett, who is just a wild man. He is crazy, you know, but he still like will stop and hug you and he'll still stop and be like, love you, mommy, you know. So they really are like deep down, you can already tell how kind-hearted they are. And I'm so grateful for that.
That's awesome. No, I think that it's funny when you talk with other parents about the term favorite. But what the reality is they are their own little unique beings. And so you have, it's not necessarily favorite because like I love my children all equally, but you just have connections because of their uniqueness that are more, you're just more attracted to, or you get along. I mean,
and there's different reasons too. Like for me,
right.
It was Declan because he was the one who made me a mother. And like for my son, for my husband with Everett, they, I don't know if Scott ever told you the story, but my husband, when my son was 3 months old, fell down the stairs when he was holding my son. Ooh. And he broke his skull in 2 places.
Oh my God.
It was unbelievably like a life-changing day. We call it Everett's accident. Like he was taken by ambulance. We had a real big scare that we were going to have like a mentally disabled child for the rest of our life. And it was so scary. Like just the other day, actually, he was playing with a mirror and he pulled the mirror down on his head and it brought us like right back to that day. It was crazy. So like Everett and Sean have this bond that's just different than a bond that I could ever have because he felt so responsible and once he got better every single day, my husband got better every single day, so they created this bond like Declan and I have. But you're right. It's like not favorites and I love them equally, but I love them differently. And I think that everybody knows that and everybody's afraid to say it out loud.
I agree. I mean, it's one of those, I think, social stigmas and you said it really well. And I completely feel the same way as, yes, I love them at the highest level and always will, but I have to love them differently. They all need different things. And I think that's one of the big challenges of parenting is adapting your styles to your children. But I love it. I mean, for me, and I think my wife, although I can't speak for her, it's the biggest joy of my life, but it's also it's hard. It's a struggle, as you said. It's a total shit show behind the scenes. And I think that's why I like going back to the pictures because then I'm like, oh, wow, look how happy we were. Well, I mean, it was a struggle from, 1 to 5. And then, now in the teens age, it's an interesting deal.
So I actually, because I am so public, right? And on like my website, people can just email me whatever they feel like emailing me. And I love people who are so brave behind a keyboard, but never to your face, And so I will get these like hate mail emails all the time. And it's just part of the job when you put yourself out there publicly. And recently we had a 3-day weekend, whatever it was, and my kids had been sick for like weeks. And then we went on a cruise. My kids were home for like a month, basically. And I was like, I can't get any work done. I work from home full time. Like, I don't get to go to an office. When my kids are home, they want me, and I'm not going to not give me to them, whatever, So that Monday came and everybody was finally healthy. I'm like, oh, it's another 3-day weekend, And so publicly on my video, I will say, oh man, like Mondays are my favorite days. I'm so productive on Mondays. It's my team call, my company-wide call. I love it. I was like, so sometimes on Mondays, like, I just wish the kids would be in school. And I get this letter that's like, oh my God, like, you just want to always get rid of your kids. You don't love your kids. Like, you love, and I'm like, oh my God. But for me, I'm like, thank you for the content. So I just go onto my social media platform. I'm like, listen, Karen, like, it's okay to not want to be with your children 24/7. Like, and I'm an advocate of like me time and sending your kids elsewhere so that you can have that time because moms like feel as if though they need to be with their kids 24/7. It's like, I didn't sign up for that. I did not sign up for that. Let somebody else help me because it takes a village and I have a great one,
Yeah. And I drove myself into a mental health crisis and, used a lot of alcohol and drugs to try to solve that. And it was the wrong way. But part of that is, to be a caregiver, you got to take care of yourself. And, and if you don't, well, then if you, like me, if you let things get really bad, well, you're no good to anybody. Exactly. And so, and I more know that lesson, obviously, from my own struggles, but more with my relationship with my wife, which is, you have to take time with your spouse to have spouse time, couple time away from them. Yeah. And then we all have kind of our different levels individually of what we need. And it's totally healthy. And again, I don't know. I mean, I think when as I know your message, I think in a way, my term would be, you're fighting back social norms that shouldn't really be there, but they're there. And people get caught in that. And it is so unhealthy. And of course, I love America. I fought for America. But the reality is the freedom can get all twisted up.
They fail us in a lot of ways, and I'm not a political person at all. Like, I don't get into it. I haven't watched the news since the Boston Marathon bombing. Like, I just don't. It's not my space to be in because I can be so affected by it, But you're right. I always say when you look good, you feel good. So you have to take care of yourself, And my priority is me, my marriage, and then my children. Because if I'm not healthy, I can't be in a marriage. If my marriage isn't healthy, my kids aren't going to be raised the way they deserve to be raised, So it's like, but people prioritize the wrong way. And maybe that's what works for their family. So like, no judgment. But to me, the way that I think it should be is yourself first. You have to, because if you're not healthy, no one else can be healthy around you, or you're just going to attract more unhealthy. And then two, I have to have a good marriage, a good, strong marriage, because I grew up in a family that didn't have that, so it's like, if I don't want to repeat history and have my kids live through something like that. So my marriage needs to be rock solid. And because it is, my kids have a better environment to grow up. And unfortunately, in this day and age, they have more of an advantage to be successful in life because they come from a 2-parent household.
Oh, that's my wife and I talk about that a lot. I mean, we have our struggles like anybody else. And I think, you hit there was a lot of knowledge right there. But I agree, like, just the fact if you can stay together and work through your couple stuff and have a 2-person, it gives your children such a better advantage to be healthy adults. Just that in and of itself. I often am sad more on the males. Like, if I could, I'd go beat a lot of males up because I feel that the male part of the population on that dynamic is failing not only spouses, but really failing the children they have. And it always fires me up because I tell young guys, hey, if you don't want to have kids, that's okay. But if you want to have kids, you need to have kids and be there and the responsibilities that go with it. And that's the exact same thing with marriage, which is, hey, if you want to get married, then get married. And if you don't, because it's a responsibility. Yeah. And anyway, I'm disappointed at this current point in time, at least in the Western American culture, in some of our males. And I think sometimes
I agree with you on that. Like, I say, my husband is literally standing in the room, so I say this like freely in my household. Like,
tell him what's up.
He says hi. But it's true. Like, men fail their wives, and it's like, I have, like I said, because I put myself out there, I open myself up for criticism, and I'm okay with it because I can handle it at this point in my life. But it's like, my husband made it one of the biggest sacrifices ever 2 years ago to leave his full-time corporate job when we had Everett, because I was booming in my business and it didn't make sense for me to slow down. But I, as a mother and as a person and as a wife, did not feel comfortable with someone else raising my child. I didn't want to pay for someone else to come in my house and raise my kid. And so my husband made that big sacrifice, and people look at that as like, oh my God, like, and my best friend owns a salon and she's super successful, and her husband is a full-time stay-at-home dad. And people, like, her family, like, doesn't understand that, it's like, guess what, guys, it's 2020. Like, the husbands aren't always the ones to provide the household anymore. And now 2 years later, I get to provide a space for my husband to create his own business and to take his time and find his passion and do the things that he wants to do, because it's a team effort. Like, he supports me, I support him. Whenever someone has something bigger going on, we just kind of, adjust and pivot and figure out what works for our family through communication and what works best for us together. Not just like, I'm the man, I'm the breadwinner,
Yeah. But, and I'm sure at some level on an individual for him, and I'm just hearing you talk, I know you discussed it, but yeah, again, back to societal norms, like that makes that decision even more tough. But it's the courageous one and it's the right one. And I understand families that need to use daycare and things, but going back to childhood, for me, my parents, I had a rough start, and then, I got a stable family eventually. But they both worked, and it was kind of like I woke up and I went to the babysitter. She kind of watched a bunch of us neighborhood kids, and then I went to school, and then I went back to her. And at some point, I don't know when it was, but probably, I mean, I obviously in high school I wasn't going, but at some point I told my parents that, you know, she was my real parent, like, because I spent more time with her. And I was really, distraught about it. Like, I felt like my parents, although they, you know, they were trying their best and I knew all that, I just felt that I missed a lot of time. And so for me, that kind of scarred me, so that for my own children, assuming my wife was fine with it, you know, I wanted to find a way to make it work that we did always provide that for them and not quote unquote outsource it. Now, I understand that's that's real for some people, but again, going to what's healthy for children in our relationships, like, there are kids, we're the ones that are responsible, and I know that was one of my driving forces, and I was blessed, at least in my Navy career, that my wife was able to accept that role, because it's kind of physically impossible to be the active duty service member and be there.
And a full-time dad. Yeah. It's actually opposite for us, right? So we're both home full-time. My husband's home full-time. I'm home full-time. My kids are in daycare full-time. And people cannot wrap their heads around that. They don't understand it. But for me, it's like, it is my choice. I get to choose to put my children in daycare. I don't feel forced to put my child into daycare like so many moms do, right? Because they have to provide. And I can pick them up early, drop them off late, go at our schedule. We take tons of vacations throughout the year. And I don't worry about the fact that I still have to pay for the week that we're on vacation, you know, and still be able to afford vacation too. And, you know, and for me, I am not the mom who can sit there and be like, here's your flashcard, A, B, C, D. Like, I don't have those abilities. I know I don't, you know, I have the ability to give them the world and to teach them that the world is theirs to take. You know, like, I have the ability to inspire my children. I don't have the ability to teach them the ABCs. So I need help with that. And that's why they go to daycare. And my 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old, is so freaking brilliant. It's insane. Like, I get complimented on his speech and how smart he is and how articulate he is all the time. And Everett is literally just following suit. And it is 100% because of a curriculum-based daycare. And that's just another topic for another day, but they don't get the credit that they deserve, you know, because my children are as smart as they are. And it's not from me. It's from them, you know. So I'm grateful to have that option and be able to afford it. But then again, that's another thing. With my kids, it's $38,000 a year for my kids to go to daycare.
Wow.
Moms can't afford that. That's like an average income. You know, it's crazy. And that's where you go back to, like, we're being failed in certain areas, you know?
Yeah. But then I mean, you do need time and space to work. And if you're working as you are, I mean, you've got to find that. And what's neat, though, is that you've done the research, and like you said, it's your choice. And then, you know, when we do that, we can live with it or we can adjust. You mentioned, which was a big part of my recovery, because when I was young, or even as I got into the military, it's true. I mean, one, to be in that particular job SEAL team, there's a little bit of ego with that, or it's selfish. Now, people will say it's selfish for a good cause, but I mean, to actually get there and do all of that, it's a little bit selfish. With your own time. But then I realized, and I'll shut up, but I put the team first for so many years, and then I literally put the country first. And then it was like, oh, you know, what time I have left over the family. And then maybe I got to myself. And the point is that for a long period of time got me screwed up. And by choice, it was my fault. Mm-hmm. But what I've learned now, and it took me to 40 years old, because I've struggled with addiction my whole life, is that I have to take care of me, number one, first. Because if I don't, I'm no good to anybody, including myself, right? I can really beat myself up. But it was hard to go from servant that got askew, to I've got to take care of me, then family, right? And then if I have some left over, I try to go out and share to make the world a better place. But you said it, and that's the thing. Like, I have to take care of me. My wife has to take care of herself, and then we can come together and we take care of the family. And a lot of times in a day, sometimes, at least for this addict, all I can do is take care of me, meaning keep myself from, like, imploding. It is okay. It's totally okay. Yeah.
and in my industry, we talk about servant leadership a lot. And it took me a while to like connect to servant leadership because like I am who I am, and you do have some sort of pre-programming in your life that takes a long time to unravel, which I'm sure you know. And servant leadership is interesting because here's two things that I always say is you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you can't pour into others if you're already empty because it's just not genuine, and you can only help somebody so much before they're willing to help themselves. Like I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not equipped to, I can give you my life advice, from what I've experienced in life and hope that you take it, but I can't force you to take it. And some people just need more help than you can offer. And so, it's just true. Servant leadership is a beautiful thing, but it is something that you need to perfect because before you know it, you have given all of yourself and there's nothing left for you. So I've learned to create those boundaries and create, that life of freedom or whatever. Like I call it my life by design. It's like the last 2 days, like I needed to not be there for anybody else but one person in my family, but it's like communication with my husband's open. So I'm like, I just can't be there for this 48 hours. And when I get home, I need to crash, and he's there because we already have those boundaries set in our life. And we know if these type of things come up, so it's not like a big surprise. And, servant leadership is just an overused term in my opinion.
Well, as I like to say, and I mean, in my other role as a kind of leadership and team dynamics consultant in organization and businesses, the nice thing is we have a psychiatrist. So when we get to the level where life experience from some of our teams isn't cutting it, he's able to add a huge value of, I'll call it deeper help. And not everybody needs that, but you're absolutely right. The term I use, and I believe in servant leadership, absolutely. It's a way, it's a good way. Not everybody's wired for it. But it does have its pros and cons. And one of it is, and I love that you use those visuals, the way you speak, that you can give. And if you haven't taken care of yourself, you don't have a lot to give. But ultimately, I think where people fail in servant leadership is you have to realize that at some point, the other person also has to pick themselves up and take responsibility and do the work. And I think what a lot of people I work with, or what I saw in SEAL team, is they have a hard time, even though they're good servant leaders, distinguishing when it's time for that person to pick themselves up and do the work, or see that they're going to refuse to, and you need to make those hard decisions. So it's not, give and all will be all right. It's more like I'm going to be there and educate, and I'm there for you, but you have to do the work. And,
and work ethic isn't the same as it used to be, and expect, like, I'm in that weird generation. So I'm 1982, right? So I'm kind of in the middle of the millennials and I'm kind of in the middle of the Gen Xers. So like they call them like the Zennials, I don't know, something. And it's like, so I was just talking about this today on my live video. Actually, I was like, I grew up drinking water from a hose like the boomers did. And, I grew up without Facebook. I grew up without this thing that's attached to my hand all the time. I grew up like that, and I grew up in a tough blue collar working class, welfare poor, like all the things. Right. And with like walking statistic right here, so I grew up like that. And now, so I have work ethic. Like I've worked since I was 14 years old. I didn't go to college. I had to find my own way and earn my own money. And nobody's willing to do that anymore. Everybody wants the Amazon Prime type of fix. So you're right. Like knowledge isn't power until it's given away. So it's like when you learn something, you give that knowledge. When you learn something, you give that knowledge. If they absorb that knowledge, awesome. But it's not up to you for them to absorb it. And that to me is my definition of servant leadership. It's like, okay, I've experienced this. Let me tell you how I got through to the other side. Hey, I learned this and I'm successful with it. Let me give it to you right away so that you can be successful too, because there's enough room for everybody to be successful. So I'll give you my tools and I'll give you my knowledge. And if you use them, great, but it's not my responsibility for you to use them.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, heck, you say it better than me, but you're absolutely right. And what I see is sometimes as leaders, they try to literally beat it into people, and that's where you get in trouble. You can't do that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been good, or I feel I've been good my whole life of I learned early, to give and then you get, right? And it's also a huge tenet of recovery. So that's never been hard for me. But at times, I've overstepped and tried to force it into people. But I'm a much more like, I teach and you have a responsibility, and I'm happy if time allows to teach again if you require it. But I know that I can't expect or take on.
Well, you know what it is you can't fall in love with potential. You have to fall in love with action.
Correct.
You see so much potential in someone. You're like, oh, they could be so amazing. If only, if only, if only. But that if only is not up to you. And it's a hard, like as a passionate person, it is hard to walk away from that and to be like, feel good with yourself at the end of the day and be able to sleep at night. It's hard to walk away. And I'm very empathetic. So I carry it with me for too long, but it is like potential isn't everything. They have to break through their barriers and put down their walls and, reprogram and put it into action. And when they do, then it's like, I'll be your biggest cheerleader. I'll be your biggest cheerleader either way, but I'll run with you with the action,
Yeah, that's how I look at it in the sense of today, I do a lot of sports consulting, and I mean, it bothers me that is all based at the college level, at least, on potential, talent. And of course, when I get in there, that means nothing to me. It's just all action and group dynamics, and let's do something as a group, better than ourselves. And I never will give up on somebody, even if they're making, I call it baby steps, because you're showing me action. And and I realize that some can go into hyperspeed quick and others it's baby steps. But as long as you're showing me action, now I know I have a chance with your potential. But I don't get turned. As a matter of fact, I would even say I just don't even listen to potential or talent. It actually drives me nuts because I'm like, that has nothing to do with what you can become, right? Action is so many pieces. Like you have to be okay with yourself. You have to be confident enough to take the action. You have to be ambitious. You have to have drive. You have to have all these things like that X factor, Yeah. And unfortunately, my generation and the millennial generation just deal with so much mental health issues that like they can't even get out of their own way. And it's sad because it's like because somebody told you something in your past, you carried it with you for the rest of your life. And you're allowing them to change your future circumstances, so it's tough. It's not easy to have. I always say I wish I could let people borrow my brain even for 15 minutes just to understand what it's like to not allow that to settle in, and just be able to kind of lessen, release and let it go. Well, yeah. I mean, I think you've learned to control what you can control. Mm-hmm. And, that's a hugely important skill. And the other thing, too, is being able to adjust because things do change. And I really work with people a lot on things change, life changes. You can't control everything that happens. But it doesn't mean you cash it in just because whatever your goal was or your plan, because everything you said is a requirement. You need to learn those things to be successful in anything. But you also have to be resilient to when, things change, and it can be family, it can be life circumstance, it can be a lot of things. And I see so many people that just get crushed when they get off plan. And I'm like, no, we just adjust.
I say it's like a roadblock, like you come up to like a roadblock and it's like, are you going to sit there for 5 days while they finish construction? Or are you going to find an alternate route?
Right.
Like I'll take the alternate route because I'm not sitting here and waiting for anybody.
Yeah, when people bring me in as a military guy, they think as I advise, like I'm going to give them this straight line. And I literally like draw a squiggle everywhere. And I go, I have no idea, but we're going to get to here, but we're going to be free to just go wherever, because as long as we keep going this way and working, we'll get there, Yeah. Where did, you said, I don't know if we have more mental health things now, or they're attached, or we just study it more, or we deal with it in different skill sets. I think sometimes for me, I think because it's out there so much more for younger people, like my children, like I didn't have the education to even talk about the terms that they talk about because it's in their schools and they hear about it. And so I wonder if there's more mental health or we just know it more and it's in our psyche. Either way, it's good to recognize it. It's just what you do with it, right? But I certainly didn't even have the language because I was born in 74. Is that right? Yeah. And I've always felt through my military experience that I was a tweener too. Like you just lead a lot of older people, you lead a lot of younger people. I've always been able to relate. But the success or the gross things we have to do are different depending on how we are age-wise and all that. My thought
process on this is my mom, like the boomer age, right? The boomer generation, like they were taught to shut up about your feelings.
Correct.
You're not allowed to talk about your feelings.
Correct.
And then, maybe my generation tried a little bit harder and then, to let it out or whatever. But I think social media is an absolute gift and I'm so grateful for the platform and there's so much good that can come from social media. But at the same time, you have to look at how the media has changed since that generation. And do I think that it's to a fault? Yeah, I do. Do I think it's all of the fault? No, but too many things have changed in our world. The way we create our food, the the access that we have to knowledge, the access that we have to media, marketing, advertising, it's all psychological. Everything's psychological now. Like they choose the colors red and orange on McDonald's because it has a psychological effect on your brain to draw you in, So that's what I look at is like, yeah, these kids are struggling in a way that we didn't know what that struggle was. And I'm grateful to be in that in-between generation so that I can help these kids have a voice, and I say kids and I'm talking about like the 20 something.
Sure.
But, so it is totally different and they are being bombarded with information and with media all of the freaking time. And they have to work hard. I know that the boomer generation would literally like light me on fire for saying this, but they have to work harder because like, just look at real estate, for instance, like the real estate market has grown. The price of real estate has grown like 80% or some, let's say 80% since the boomer generation, but the income has only been raised like 10%, so like these kids are walking out of college with $50,000 in debt, whereas those generations had financial aid and they walked away with no bill. Like I went to one semester of college and I just paid off my student loans 3 years ago. One semester.
Right.
It's just crazy. So I do think that these kids struggle with a lot more. And I do think that people need to listen to them.
Well, I get frustrated because obviously, I led the lazy whatever generation in combat. And I go, no. And this is pretty universal across military leaders of my generation is I always get asked, well, how do you lead these Gen Xers, millennials? I go, you lead. Like you may have to change and adjust your styles, but that's what leaders do. You can't sit around and complain because the world that we designed or our forefathers designed and mothers, we've created a more bombarded by everything, to drive profits and selling and money. And, we've told everybody you have to go to college, which is bullshit. And, and so more people are coming into the work sector in debt, maybe with an education that makes sense, maybe not. And, so that's a stressor. They're bombarded every day. There's more information out there. And then we're not listening and adapting to what they need to grow, to be successful young people and then adults as well. And that's frustrating to me because like any generation, if you lead and you pass on your experience and you're willing to work with the unique challenges that everybody has, things work out fine. They're no different, if you will, and again, in the combat sector than anyone else. They just have challenges and we had challenges in the year before. But what is different is, again, going back to things change. And I do agree with you as a guy that professionally, obviously, we were poo-pooed from social media as it began to take form when I was on active duty. And it was actually athletics, young people, when I was talking with them and they asked how they could stay in contact with me. And I said, email. And they looked at me so funny. I was like, what, you guys don't email? And they're like, don't you have like Facebook or Twitter? I was like, what?
Yeah.
And so I literally, they downloaded an account for me years back, 2010, I think. And so I started, and I agree with you. Like, it can get out of hand, but it's a phenomenal platform for everyday people to share information. And like podcasting now, like you can go research and do and study whatever interests you, and you can find out what other people are doing. And that is a great collective resource, because I'm 100% with you. As we've grown, I don't watch any TV or news from major outlets because there's an agenda. And when I want to learn things, I want to research it for me. And that's what the platforms have given me, as a way to go and find and discount things that I think, this is written with an agenda, or they're trying to sell me something, opposed to, this may sound silly, like, I want to learn about black holes, like, or I want to learn about this.
It's true. And I'm excited for, like, I don't want to sit here and say I'm excited for a generation to end, because
Right.
it's interesting to be in that middle where you
Yeah.
do see a generation end and see a generation take over, but like I'm going to be 38 years old this year. I have purple hair and tattoos, and I'm still told to this day that I can't be professional. I'm like, y'all are crazy, man. Like, I'm more professional than pretty much every single person that says that to me. You know why? Because I wouldn't ever say that to somebody.
Right.
And you're right. Like, these kids are walking into life with stress from too many outside sources, including the resources that they have right underneath the roof of their own house. So I'm excited to see what the future has to hold, because, for me, I'll be like the cool grandma with the purple hair and tattoos,
Yeah.
But people still will judge me at this age with my success, with all of my accomplishments. They'll still judge me just because of the color of my hair, so it's like, yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, media is beautiful, and it's also probably our biggest fight against ourselves.
Absolutely. Again, because if it drives kind of societal norms, whether they're good or bad, and in the reality, what we need to do is learn to be comfortable in our own skin, and also, if you're in a leadership role and a followership role, is find that balance. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if we don't have these platforms, more than likely somebody like you and me can never connect. I mean, it's just,
or even have a conversation like this. Like,
well, that's what I mean. Like, we would just not run into each other.
Yeah. And I always say, like, religion, politics, these type of topics, like, why can't we just have like an open forum conversation about it? Like, I almost have to avoid those topics on my platform because it opens up like a Pandora's box that I'm not prepared to. And I'll openly say, like, I'm not educated on politics. I can't argue with you about politics because I'm not educated.
Right.
Like, I can't, it's not a fair fight, and again, it's all just opinions, and it's what you're passionate about. And I appreciate that. And I always talk about this one conversation with my friend, Megan Hannigan, right? And we were in Colombia. We had earned a trip to Colombia. We're at some random steakhouse in Colombia. And she's just such a beautiful friend of mine, very Christian, right? And I don't practice religion. We're sitting at this random steakhouse in Colombia, like Bogota, Colombia. And she had her phone out. She's watching like the Miss America pageant, which I adore her. She's like, look at this girl. And it's just like not something I'm into, but I'm like totally watching it with her. And we end up having this conversation about religion, right? And I was like, yeah, I just don't really practice religion for my own reasons, whatever. And she's very vocal about her journey with Jesus. And we talked for like 1 hour about like how her Jesus loved me and, and how it saved her soul and all these things. And it was so beautiful because she listened to me and I listened to her. And at the end of it, I walked away and I'm like, this girl's Jesus really does love me. Like I believed that when I left that conversation. And I was like, see, like if the world could just be open to having these conversations with each other, like, and everybody just practice a little bit more gratitude for what they do have and a little bit more kindness. Like, I honestly think like this generation has the opportunity to really give that world peace feeling because they're willing to listen and accept others. Like the bullying, it's like people are standing up for the bullied nowadays,
right.
you know, and there's going to be an end to it. And I think everybody's going to be a little kinder in the future, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, there's so much opportunity, and that's, post-military, I've been frustrated getting back into the civilian population, because the thing I think that people struggle with is people want to put you in camps, like, and as I always like to say, like, whoa, I'm so much larger than that. I have so much more than to be put in this category or that category. It's a really bad thing. And ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, it's okay to have a healthy conversation and disagree. You can have great conversations with other humans to learn things and then walk away and agree to disagree. As a freedom fighter, if you will, that's exactly what we fight for, is the ability to have that freedom to be able to do that. And I will hope as time goes on, and I will always try to model it, that's a really important thing to make the world a better place, because it's how you share ideas. And it's totally okay to be passionate about what you're passionate about and have a conversation with somebody else and to disagree. But it's not okay, in my opinion, to go into camps, and it doesn't matter what topic, right? It doesn't matter what topic. And somebody the other day, I mean, obviously I live in a very conservative place, and, we talk a lot, those of us that have kind of gone out and seen the world, but then chose to come back here and raise our families. We were laughing because just yesterday I said to somebody, if I'm in New York or LA or somewhere and somebody's walking by me with wild hair, I don't even think about it, right? But I go, if that same person is in Nebraska, everybody's like, oh, what drug are they on? Like, I mean, that's the default. Like, oh, they're all messed up. And I go, I'm so proud that my kids have kind of seen the world, because they don't see that. And they shouldn't, because that person is their own person. And what your hair color is or what tattoos, like, that has nothing to do with who you are, But it's so funny. But a lot of people aren't comfortable with that, and some people aren't comfortable being that. Speaking of that, how many hair colors have you had?
Oh my God, too many. And see, I think it has everything to do with who I am. That's the thing. Like, right. I express myself through that, and it's like, I feel like I'm purple hair today. I had my signature red hair for the longest time. I've had green. I've had blue. My natural hair color is black. And like, if you just asked me about it, I would tell you about it, but you're absolutely right. And the one thing that drives me crazy all the time is people are like, oh my God, I love your hair. But, like, I love your tattoos. But like, every time I go through like Starbucks or like Dunkin' Donuts, they're like, I love your hair, but I could never do that for whatever reason, like my other job, or because I'm older, or because I'm a mom, or whatever. And I'm like, but yes, you can, like, just go to the store, go to your stylist, do it, because that's what your heart tells you to do, And it's like, when you start to live your authentic self, when you start to step into your greatness, when you start to be, my motto, unapologetically confident for who you are, then it's like, oh, you just get this freedom to just be, and then you inspire others, and it's like this really cool chain effect, and it's so I've had probably like, I don't know, like 8 different hair colors.
Well, you motivate me to just, because I like to say the word fuck a lot, and you motivate me. But that, again, in my own addiction, that was part of it. Was I was trying to adhere to some norms that I wasn't deep down inside, and there was a lot of other things, but I struggle with it. And a little bit today I struggle, because there are people that they want me to be what they see on CBS or something. They think they know. And I mean, I'm so much more just me outside of the service, even though I'm super proud of that time. And I think most of the people that were around me know I was authentic, but I struggle with that. And I laugh because obviously when I'm podcasting, or even when I'm talking, now if I'm giving a professional talk, I reel it in a little bit. I'm not silly, but anyway, there's been so many people that are like, can you just not use that word? And I'm like, why does that word offend you? I use it in context. And so.
You ever watched Gary Vaynerchuk? Gary Vaynerchuk?
I need to then.
Gary Vaynerchuk is amazing. You can find him anywhere on any social media platform. Gary V.
Okay.
And you actually kind of look like him. Same thing. Like
I'm gonna look him up right now.
He's like a motivational speaker.
Okay.
And he drops F-bombs to 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing. It's the context. It's just it's what gets the message across sometimes. But it's like, why are you less professional because you use that word?
Right.
Like it just doesn't make any sense.
I think I got him. Gary V. I got him. Okay. I'm gonna start following him.
If you drop it out. So I also, like, I'm Italian. I grew up in Boston, like,
right.
And so same thing, but my platform is all moms and like, they get it. And it's like, okay, after 9 o'clock, anything goes, but I do most of my live videos at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I know like a lot of kids watch my videos. So I had to learn real quick to like, watch your mouth.
Yeah.
I remember this one video I did where me and one of my best friends, Danielle, we did clown makeup for Halloween and we went to Target at like 10 o'clock at night. And we scared everybody. It was amazing. And I had like this cute clown makeup on and she looked like legit, like run the other way type scary. And it was like 2 years ago when there was a big clown scare around here where people
nice.
dangerously being clowns. Yeah. So we walk into Target. I start the live video because everybody's like watching the journey. And I'm like, oh my God, Danielle, you look fucking scary. Because she really did. She had contacts in and stuff. And you should have seen my live video because everybody knows like how hard I try to like not drop anything on a video. And everybody was like, Kelly, you said the F-bomb. I'm like, it's okay. She really is scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of actually my girls, my boys know. It's so funny. My girls are youngest, but like they follow me on Instagram, which is hilarious. And obviously in the house, they hear things. But it's like even other young people, with athletes, I talk about the N-word a lot. And I say, guys, it's time and place. Like there are times that certain cultures are okay with that, right? Mm-hmm. Regardless of what society's telling you, like, going to any locker room and stuff. But I say all words are time and place, right? And, in the end, it's just funny. So all my vets, when this comes up, they hit me up and they're like, oh, screw those people, like, because they get it. And it goes back to like what you were saying. I always loved when I was in the Navy is just all service these days. Tattoos are big, but the Navy's kind of always been known for sailors and tattoos. And I loved it because, they tried to outlaw sleeves because, under the arm, it looked unprofessional according to the Navy. And I laughed because the minute they came out with like a top down credo like that, as an officer, I have to say the policies and quote unquote try to enforce them. And I laughed because, when it was given to me in the morning meeting, I looked and I said, well, we just gave every San Diego tattoo parlor millions of dollars of business. And they're like, what are you talking about? I go, every one of our sailors is running out there right now
to get a sleeve.
To get sleeves. And I said, are we really this crazy? I go, that has nothing to do with how professional or who they really are, but in the service, obviously you've agreed to live by a code and most of us do, right? But I just laugh because every once in a while, we've got a war on, it's long, guys express themselves how they do. And let's be honest, when you're in the service, you have agreed to live to a higher standard in our look, our uniforms, and it's just a way that they express their individuality, which is cool. It actually makes the force stronger.
Yeah. This is what I say all the time when I try to like explain it, because people ask me all the time, like, how are you so confident? Like, how are you so willing to just put yourself out there? And, how do you deal with like the haters, and how do you deal with the people, I call them keyboard warriors, that are willing. I've had mail sent to my house telling me that like, I steal food off of the tables of young children and I keep babies from having diapers on their bottoms. And I'm just like, what? It's crazy to me. I'm like, if you took a second to get to know me, you would know like who I authentically am. And the way that I look at it is like people who have the time and the energy to approach somebody like that, or even think thoughts like that, and then go as far as saying them and taking actions on those thoughts, you're entitled to them. You have, you can have your opinion, but your opinion, like Rachel Hollis says, your opinion of me is not my business. And I look at it as this is like, I'm not willing to live a mediocre lifestyle. Like I don't want to leave this earth and not leave a legacy of some sort. And I'm going to die trying to do that. And so many people are just so stagnant and so willing to just live in this mediocre space and just go to work, come home, be a husband, be a wife, be a mom. And that's all that they have intentions to do. And that's fine. But when you have enough time and energy to pay attention to me and criticize me, that's on you, sis. Like, that is not my issue. That's an issue internally with yourself, and maybe it's because, you want to emulate that confidence, or you're lacking that confidence and wish you had that, so you choose to go on the defense mode instead of praising and instead of lifting others up and fixing each other's crowns, as females will say, so it's like, it's okay. If you want to be mediocre, it's cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's actually pretty honorable to just, be a good mom and be a good worker and, have the house and the 2.5 kids and pay your bills on time, but for me, no, there's a lot of world to see. I got 2 boys that have something special inside of them that deserves to have the platform for people to see that special inside of them. And I have something special inside of me, and I have a loud voice that people need to hear, because I need to leave this earth knowing that I helped a group of people become more confident and understand that their value and their worth,
Well, not only that, I mean, what you're talking about is you have a passion to make the world a better place, and you're willing to go out and do that. Even if you fail, you don't fail because you
tried.
Exactly. And so many people struggle with that. And that's, I try to help people with that. But at the same time, I want that. Like, I am very passionate about that too, because we do only have a finite time on this earth. And I tell a lot of people, and I really believe this, like, in the end of the day, in the service, you see some death, and it's sad, but it's a sacrifice. But what I know is when we are gone, the people that do know us or that we've reached, I mean, they have one of 2 things that they remember you by. They're either like, oh, screw that guy, or, man, they really impacted me. Memories, you that's all you really pass on, and whatever skills you can reach. And so I'm a big fan of doing that and championing that and trying to get out there. And I'm also a fan if again, you just kind of, that's your thing, that's cool, but don't encroach.
But I'm not gonna go find you to make you feel like shit about it.
Right, exactly. And I haven't had too much. I mean, and I'm not big time. I suspect anybody that gets big time, there's going to be hate, but it's just something I don't understand, because to me it's like such time wasted. I don't ever
time wasted.
Yeah, I don't ever walk around, even with people that are very different. Maybe when I was really young, but I so believe in kindness and openness until you've given me a reason to, like, I guess, go into my fight mode. In which case, in this day and age, like, there's really no reason. I walk away, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying, though. Like, when you get to that fight mode, like, that's you. That's not them. So, like, I have this ability to understand that.
Yeah.
My ability to understand that is, instead of going on defense mode, and because, listen, I am Sicilian, I can clap back like no one's business.
Right.
So, like, I used to do that. Like, I used to be like, screw her, screw this, and make a big deal out of it and all these things. And now it's like, you send me a message like that, like, I'm going to put you out there because you sent it because you want a reaction.
Right.
But you're not getting the reaction that you think you're going to get.
Correct.
You're getting the reaction of, like, okay, I feel your pain and I understand why you're sending me this message. I'm still going to open my door to be your friend. Like, I'm still going to be there to explain to you why I am the way I am and hope that you take a piece of that with you. Yeah. Instead of being like, oh, you're a bitch, you sent this to me, you're so brave, come on, fight me. Like, it's just not who I am. Like, I would rather give you the opportunity to get to know me more, for one, and give you the opportunity to walk away a better person and understand that what you did hurts. And if somebody wasn't as confident as I am, you could have caused irreplaceable damage on somebody, and who gives you the right to do that? You know, I don't understand that. So okay, you were raised in Boston. Awesome. I'm working with
an athlete right now that is as Boston as you get, and mom and dad too. So it's a lot of fun. And in SEAL team, one of the first kind of mentors I had was from Boston. And I wasn't raised on a farm. I was raised though in a small town in Nebraska. And so I kind of young fit that stereotype of a Midwest kid. And so it's just been this great journey in the Navy where I got to see a lot of the world and a lot of my countrymen. And I've always had a special place in my heart for Bostonians, starting in SEAL team and then everything. And obviously Scott moved there, which I think is funny. And I have a couple of football connections that live there as well. But yeah, so you go from there and then you kind of go on this journey of, I'm going to call it self-discovery, but explain it to me. And then you end up back in Boston. You're raised there.
Which I say I would never do. And I still try to convince my husband to move out of here all the time. So I met my husband in high school.
Okay.
So, all right, so quick timeline, right? So I was born and raised in a city called Revere. And my mom's been married and divorced a couple times. And I have one older brother who really struggled. And my biological father was a convicted child molester. So that's like sets the tone kind of for like my childhood. And so as the city started to get a little bit worse and my brother started to get a little bit too involved in, a tough lifestyle, my mom moved us to a smaller town called Stoneham, which is where I met my husband in high school. And my husband was like my first saving grace in this world. He was just a first rock steady person to me. And he was 1 year older than me. And so when he decided to go to UMass, I thought it was the end of the world. It was 2 hours away. And I was like, you're leaving me, abandonment issues. And I was like, and so we separated for quite a while, got back together a couple times. And you're right. So once I graduated from high school, my mom was off doing her thing and my brother was off doing his thing. And, I knew I didn't want to do this and I didn't want to do that. So I needed to get out and get into a clear space so that I could find my own path and not just have to follow the path that was given to me because it wasn't a path that I was ever going to find success on. And I'm grateful to my mom in so many ways because she just, no matter how much she struggled and no matter how hard it was, she always made me feel like I could conquer the world. And I'm so grateful for those messages that she gave me. And I'm grateful for my upbringing, as hard as it was, because without that, I wouldn't appreciate what I have now. But yeah, it was self-discovery. I was working at a restaurant in New Hampshire and my friend's like, I'm moving to California. And I was like, well, me too. And I left 10 days later.
Where'd you go in Cali?
Mammoth.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Ski Mountain. Yeah. So stayed out there for a couple years. And actually my husband now is the reason why I came back. And we dated for like a short amount of time and then we didn't. And then I was in a pretty terrible relationship for a few years in New Hampshire, needed to get away from that. So I don't know if it was self-discovery or running away. It was almost like I ran away and ended up in self-discovery mode, which is beautiful. And I lived in Yellowstone National Park for like 3.5 years and came home for my 10-year high school reunion. And I told myself I was never coming home. Like that was it. I needed to stay away from New England because there was nothing positive here for me. And my husband's aunt and uncle was having their 40th wedding anniversary and my husband was hosting it. And he was like, you should stop by and say hi to everybody. And I was like, okay. And so that was it. We decided to get back together that night. And we said, if we're doing it to get married. And I've been home for the last 8 years and we have 2 kids and a beautiful life together now. So I needed to live that life without my husband and I needed to experience as much as I did experience the heartache from breakups and the heartache from family issues and, all that before I knew that this was what I needed. It's a piece of what I need. My story's not over. We still have a lot to conquer. And will we be in Boston forever? I don't think so. But we have 11 beautiful nieces and nephews all right here, so we have a beautiful family here and I got babies and these babies deserve stability until they're ready to spread their own wings and do their own thing and their own self-discovery journey,
Yeah, my wife and I talk about it. I have no idea how we got this far with our family, but we have. And, the youngest, we kind of think, okay, we've got like 10 more years for the youngest. And it's something we focus on providing an environment now. And I also, I don't feel guilty. It's not guilt. I just missed it. I mean, I had kids. I got married because I wanted to get married, obviously, and was deeply in love with my wife. And I've said before, like somebody asked me on a podcast, what was one of the most scary things in your life? And I said, the day I gave my vows. Like, I mean, it was awesome, but I was really scared about that I could hold up my end of the bargain because my word is everything to me. And so far I have, and that's good. And again, it's awesome, but I was really scared. But then you have the kids and again, the military just took me away. So I felt like, wow, I wanted to have kids. I wanted to be a dad. And so I spent a lot of time where I just like get home and it was almost bedtime and I would fall asleep with my kids. Yeah. But now, I'm doing everything I can to be around, to give them the best chance. But yeah, I mean, I've run away from things, but we do run away in especially when we're younger. I think that's natural, but it is self-discovery at the same time. And I think it's like good.
Fight or flight mode in a way,
Yeah.
Like for me, I didn't have a home to come home to, so like when I went off and did my thing, I didn't have a childhood home to come home to. We always grew up in apartments. We moved a lot and so I never had that stability. Like, I want my boys to go do you, boo. Like, go do whatever you want to do. And until you can do it on your own, I'm going to, like, my boys both have like 5 and 6 stamps on their passports. They're 2 and 4 years old. Like, it's
That's
crazy.
Awesome.
So I'm going to take you to see the world and take you to do whatever you want to do until you can do it on your own. But you'll always have like a house. Yeah. You'll always have a space to be, Like, I want my boys to be like, I have a ground zero to come home to all the time, because to have a lack of that is like an empty hole inside of you almost. Like when you see your friends and your peers around you, like have that space that's safe for them. I want my boys to always, always, always have. I might downsize eventually in life, but they'll always have a bedroom and like a place for someone to babysit their babies and,
Well, yeah, we moved around a lot, and that's one of the things I'm big on now is kind of like, this is home base, and I hope that we can always kind of have that home base for them. But I think what you're describing, and obviously you've been able to, provide the ability to go around the world and have passports, and not everybody can do that, but what I always say, it's still good, even if it's 50 miles or 100 miles, get out of your environment. Yeah, get out of where you are and experience things. And these are some of my favorite pictures. I don't know. Look how young my kids are. I mean, we have baby pictures for passports in the and again, I was able to do it through the military. What I always say is, I couldn't afford to do all that myself, but the military provided that. And I'll never get rid of those passports. Like, baby pictures for the passports.
Look at this is Declan.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Same thing.
Literally 3 months old when we got them their passport. It's like the funniest thing ever because we're just about to renew Declan's because it's every 5 years for the kids, and they're like little babies.
those are you got me beat. Those are so much better. Where have you guys all gone?
Let's see. Declan has been to Curacao beyond whatever it's been to. We've been to Mexico. We've been to the Bahamas twice, the Dominican Republic, I think. I don't even know. I'd have to look. I just recently went to London. We travel a lot. So what's beautiful about my business is my business takes us to a lot of places. My husband and I actually just earned a trip to Fiji, which that was like the first trip that I was like, oh my God, I actually had to deny that trip because it's on my son's 5th birthday. And we just big on birthdays here. But been to Colombia, like just a ton of different places. And it's so cool to like, my kids travel so well. And like my husband just took Declan down to the Red Sox training camp with his mom for like the week or whatever. And I'm blessed to have like the time and financial freedom to jump and just go wherever we want to go. Because my brother lives in Chicago, so we traveled there a lot. Like I'll take both boys there. So they've been on more. I didn't even have my passport until I was 30. Right. And my kids have like stamps on there, so I don't understand,
That's awesome. My wife is from Chicago, so I was born in Chicago. And then my father was killed when I was 2 months old. So my mother is from Nebraska. So we moved, obviously, and I was raised in Nebraska. But my father's side, which I keep in touch with was from Chicago. And then I thought it was really cool that I met my wife, who is from Chicago and her whole family, but she came to Nebraska for college, and that's where we met. So Chicago's a big part of our life. I love that city.
Same.
But it's so cool.
I go there all the time.
Yeah. And I've believe it or not, I've never been to Boston. So with Scott there now, and again, some of my other friends, like I'm definitely coming out in the next 4 or 5 months. I should have got out there earlier, but I'm a fan. But it's great that you're able to do that, and obviously you'll continue to do that because it's just in your personality. But for my audience, I think that's so valuable to get out of your little area as you can. Mm-hmm. Just expand, because it gives you perspective.
The United States, I've been to all the lower 48 states in the United States, and I have physically driven myself behind the wheel in every state in the lower 48 states. So my bucket list is Alaska and Hawaii, so that I can just kind of finish it off, right? And so for our 40th birthdays, I'm going to take Sean to Hawaii. He's going to take me to Alaska. And so, what I have seen in this country, honestly, is more favorable to me than the places that I've traveled, like seeing Arches National Park, for instance. And, there's so many beautiful places right here in our own backyard that I think we take for granted and never take the time to go see. Yeah. But I went on a national park tour, and oh my gosh, this country is so freaking beautiful, and people really should take advantage of it. And you can drive wherever. It might take you 50 hours to get there, but you can drive, and you can experience the culture that's right in your own homeland.
That's so the thing is, you're absolutely, that's really cool you did that. And I think as you can, every American needs to try to do that, because again, you get in the military, you go overseas, you get it pretty quick. Wow. Our place is pretty special. But you also said something that I think the average American sometimes fails to realize, is that, whether it's each state or sector, is there's different cultures all over America. And that's what makes it beautiful, that you can just travel and go, and, it's easy if you want it to be. But each place you go is so unique and has such different ideas and people, and it's huge, and it's easy to do. And almost everywhere else in the world, Europe, maybe a little bit, you can do that too. But it's just wonderful, and it broadens your experience, and it gives you perspective. And therefore, when you have that, it is easier then to have the conversations with different people and not judge and not get put into camp, or, allow yourself to, because that's, again, my opinion, detriment of society is allowing yourself to get put into camps.
I spent a month in Denham Springs, Louisiana, and it was probably the coolest month of my life. I got to experience that deep Southern culture, right? And the food, and the love that these people have, and the music, and so much. I mean, it's so rich, all the plantations and just the rich history down there. And yeah, you're right. But it gives you a better understanding of the world, right? So you walk away with more gratitude. And I think people take gratitude for granted. They say, I have gratitude. And it's gratitude's not something that you have. It's like yoga, you practice gratitude. And you have to continue your practice all the time in order to get better and better and better at it and understand it more, because there's never a space in your life where you'll just fully understand gratitude or fully have it. It's just a practice that you always have to stay in. And that type of travel allows you to, hone in on the craft of practicing gratitude. Yeah.
And again, that's one of the greatest things I experienced in the military was, and people think in SEAL team, we just, in my case, San Diego was kind of my home base. And so it was oh, you guys just sit there. No, in the conduct of training and everything, we go all over the United States just for training. And so we're on the road a lot. And I found it so, for me, I call it people watching. I would go first time to the Deep South, had never been there. And, when we had time off on the weekend, I could just sit and people watch. And learn. And then, obviously when I'd go overseas, I would do the same thing. But I was just taking it in and learning, and I still want to keep traveling and go places. But what it taught me was, wow, there'd be places I'm ugh. But I'm okay, mark this. I want to bring my wife back here. And then it was okay, mark this. I want to bring the kids here. And And, we continue to do that. I just took the boys, well, it's been a while now, maybe 6-7 months, but we took kind of a dude trip to Moab and then Arches and all the places. And it was so funny, like the first day, typical dad stuff. I'm like, come on, we're going to hike. And I've got water bottles, because it's not like I go big time. It's just like put the water in the pack. That's all we need to survive. And again, national park, we're not off the grid. But then, of course, we're walking along, kind of underestimated how the temperature can change, which I should know better. But anyway, we got an off trail. So it was like we take the hardest routes through the day. And I'm thinking, we'll do 5 or 6 hours. Oh, no. I mean, we're deep in the crevices of Arches. And my one boy's like, Dad, I need more water. And I'm like, we've sucked all the water dry. And I'm like, oh, good job, Dad. Former Navy SEAL, he's going to cause his kids to die out in Arches. But
dehydration.
Right. But no, we got our way back, and that was, as a matter of fact, next week it's kids' spring break, so don't know yet, but we're gonna get in the car and go somewhere.
I'm never going anywhere with my dad ever again, is what they're saying.
Right. Oh, they've just kind of learned, like, Dad will have no clue what he's doing, but it'll all work out in the end.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that'll always be an awesome story that they'll tell, though.
Yeah, that's I talk to me if you can. What have been some of the pros and cons from your perspective? Because, big women empowerment. And when I work with athletics, people will talk a lot about Title X in athletics, which is, making it so that women have the opportunities. And so obviously, and my mother and aunts are big into it and, have been successful. But talk to me about where we're at in that kind of growth curve, and I guess providing opportunity, and also maybe some of the pros and cons, or why we still struggle with that. Because I just treat every human being as a human. Like, I'm more about, we're all humans. So, while other people may judge a culture, especially, quote unquote, when America's at war with them, I come back and I'm like, hey, they're just people like us. Their children have bright eyes just like our children. And deep down inside, you know what they want? They want to provide a better future for their kids. It's no different. The language is different. The religion might be different. But that is a human trait. And so I've developed, and again, I wasn't when I was younger, but it's like, we're just people. And so I don't always understand, because I think America has been very male-dominated, kind of that struggle, if you will.
It's such a sensitive subject to so many people, and like...
Well, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, exactly. And like I said, I'm not educated in politics, so I only know what I know.
Right.
But you have somebody running the country, that does not appreciate and respect women to the degree that they deserve to be appreciated and respected. And I honestly, and this might be unpopular opinion, okay, so stick with me here for a second, but I think that women allow it to a certain degree. Like, if you allow your husband to do this, if you allow your father to do this, if you are in 100% control of who you are and what you allow in your space, so it's like, you have to challenge it. And if you're not challenging it, then it's always going to be the way that it is. And you can challenge things in a respectful way, but because I do work with women so often, and I recruit in my business and stuff. And so a lot of the times, like, oh, I have to ask my husband, I have to do this and I have to do that. And it's like, well, do I ask my husband to do something? Not really, like, I'm my own person. So do I discuss it with him and let him know, like, this is the decision that I made and we're going to go forward? And, do I respect his opinion and all the things that he has to say? And, sometimes does he talk me out of things? Yep. I talk him out of things too. And, so in my household, it's very 50-50. And I'm so grateful for that my boys get to see that too. But as a culture, man, we still need to step it up a lot. Like, even just the narrative of, like, breastfeeding moms. It's like, why is it even a narrative? Like, that is how women provide, like, that's how children survive. It's like, it shouldn't even be a narrative. Meanwhile, in other cultures, women walk around completely topless, and that's just, like, normal. So again, it's always going to come down to the media and the things that we're exposed to, because And I'm grateful for the generation that's coming, because I feel as if though, like this whole like pronoun thing and non-binary and all this, you're right. It's like human is human. And I respect that. I do. And a lot of people don't understand it, but I'm like, but if everybody was just like that, then we would all just love each other equally. And a female could be president. You know, the top rocket scientist could be a female. You know, we wouldn't be judged for the way that we look, judged on our appearances. So the media has to change first in order for the culture to change, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's always like I like to say, one of my funny things in my own brain is I call it the weatherman syndrome. And it's like, oh, so we had weathermen, and then of course a woman can do that job. But then what does the media do? Like, yes, they find women that have the knowledge, but then they've got to fit some kind of beauty critique. And I'm like, well, what does that got to do with anything? Like, you're either a good... Do you know what I mean?
And I don't understand how males, maybe just because of their physical strength, you know, like, I don't understand how males ended up being the hierarchy here. Because, like, I grow humans.
Right.
Like, what's your superpower?
Right.
You know? Like, my body can literally create an entire organ, right, to sustain a human being, and then extract that human being and extract that organ and then do it all over again multiple times. Like, and trust me when I say, like, a man could never survive childbirth. Like, you literally could not survive childbirth.
Oh, no, I know 100%. I was there for all four. 100%.
So, like, why do men get told that they're the stronger one? You know, it's like, no, women... It's because women have emotions, women have estrogen, and women are not afraid to show their emotions. So, like, because we cry more often just because of our genetic makeup, then we are the weaker link here, you know? So it's like, okay, so because we're more emotional, well, guess what? Maybe this country needs a little bit more empathy. This country needs a little bit more emotion. You know, maybe it should be that you're allowed to have those emotions, but no, we're told to swallow them down, suck it up, shut up, and keep going. You know, and women don't do that. We speak up, and we're told we're not allowed to do that, you know?
Yeah, on my journey, I mean, I'm with you. Like, if I could go back in time, one of the things I would like to witness and understand is how that dynamic came to be. Because my journey has said, you know, whether it's 50, we need 50-50 because there's pros and cons to all humans. But when there are differences by male, female, and what we're capable of. And I don't understand why both are so valuable, and sometimes in different ways and sometimes similar. But I don't understand because, you know, born in 74, you know, you don't even start thinking about these things till you're an adult. But I've never understood it. Just how it got that way. Now, traveling the world, I've seen atrocities where women and kids, it's just like, you're like, okay, I get that, right? Like, and it's so wrong. And I hope we grow. And people will say to me all the time, like, I laugh, you know, in a battlefield perspective, like, women were so valuable because they can reach another audience, right? I mean, they have these skills, and so I don't even get that argument. And I just don't know, but we are getting better, but we're not there. We're not even close to there yet. And I just know on the opposite, one of the driving forces for me to take education serious, because I only did education to play sports, fully admit, was that at some point I started hearing teachers talk about how girls are just smarter than boys. And it really bothered me. I was like, no, I can be smart. Like, I can study. and probably from about 13 to all the way through college, like, I studied because I didn't want people to have that perspective of me as a male, like I'm just some knuckle-dragging male. But of course, then I went into a profession that the stereotype is that we're like that. When the reality is, I mean, what I teach is compassion, empathetic servant leadership. I mean, that's how you get it done in a hardcore special ops community. At the same time, my wife breastfed all the kids, so I don't get that one either. Number two, I realized really quickly, my mother is been through a lot and struggles. And I realized, you know, watching childbirth, I was like, oh yeah, we can't do that. Not even close. And then number two or three when I had my daughters, watching their social development quicker, a lot quicker than my boys, I was like, oh my God, like we're the males. I'm like, we're the total idiots of society. Like, I say that in a funny way.
Like men are just simple, you know?
Well,
and
right.
Maybe that's what it is. Like men are very simple creatures and women are very complicated.
Yeah.
And it obviously has to do with the genetic makeup of so many things. But I mean, we're talking like way, way, way back in the day, you know, like when marketing was like created, you know, that's when the divide happened, if I'm being completely honest. Because like back in like caveman days, like the man went out and they hunted the food, but the women provided. The women created the shelter. The women, you know, took care of the babies and stuff, you know. So even that was even because they had a job and they had a job, and those were the jobs that they did. But then as marketing and as media kind of came out, you know, it's like, well, the wife stays in the kitchen and she's real pretty in this apron while she does it with her Maytag appliances.
Right.
You know, and so I think that it's always been, the divide has always come from outside forces instead of just trusting your instincts and, you know, creating what feels good for you and what feels good for your circumstances instead of just doing what everybody tells you to do. So it's all about influence.
Yeah, and I also think that, you know, again, obviously I love the male culture. We have a lot to give. And again, it's equal, but you've got to find it. And you play to your strengths. But at the same time, what hurts the male culture currently is the willingness not to be vulnerable and believing all the BS that we have to be tough guys and we have to answer everything with anger. That's the exact wrong way to approach it. You better find that or you're not going to have a very happy, fulfilled life and you're going to be miserable and you're going to make the planet and people around you miserable. And that's where we need to improve. But yeah, I've grown in this healthy appreciation. And at the same time, I will tell you, like, even my dog, Win back there, like the females, because of the, I think, you know, childbirth and all of that, they have a better protection instinct naturally. And it's just, there's a power in that, even if it's not muscles. It's just, men, it's different.
Like,
but
we can't survive one without the other. We can't survive
correct.
one without the other. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, as a human, not whatever your anatomy is, you know, as a human, if you're kind, if you're compassionate, if you're driven, if you're ambitious, you know, and if you have some sense of self-worth, then if everybody could work on those instead of worrying about everything else, then I think that life would be a lot easier, you know, because you're right. Like, we can't survive without each other. So like, why not just survive equally? Correct.
Well, again, I think you said the key word, and my wife and I feel the same way. We're a team, and not only that, we're a team, but the world is a village, and you can either take advantage of that or you can destroy that. And I think that, you know, some people, like you said, I mean, I totally agree that a lot of the advertising and stuff has put that out there. And what I always tell people is, don't believe the hype. Don't believe, like, find it yourself. Like, you know, get around the people that care about you. You know, eventually, even if you aren't born into that, you can find it, you know, whether it's a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and you will grow. But yeah, the hype really kind of screws human beings up.
Yeah. And you're so right. Like, I always say your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So like the energy that you put out is the energy that you're going to get back. And I don't know if you've ever read the book, I forget the name of it, but like you are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, right? And when I first heard that, I took that so literally. You know, I was like, oh, the actual like physical 5 human beings I spend the most time with. And that's just not true. You know, like it can be like a motivational speaker that you listen to on repeat every single day. And, you know, so you can work on bettering yourself so that you can pour that out into others, you know, but yeah, you have to take inventory of who you're surrounded by. Yeah. Because your failures might not be something that is happening. It could be something that's happening because of outside forces that you're surrounding yourself by. And it's okay to release that. You know, it's okay to walk away from those people, even if they are family, you know, because if you have that desire to just be a better person and make a change in this world, then you can go and do that and not let anybody else tell you differently. But you have to surround yourself with like-minded people in order to be successful, because otherwise you're just going to get sucked into the energy of everybody that you're surrounded by.
Yeah, my thing since I was young, and even now, I just said it to a kid I'm working with. I said, if everybody's doing it, it's probably wrong. That's a reality. And what stuck with me, the phrase that you're kind of talking about, is I read something way back that said, have no friends not equal to yourself. Now, people could take that the wrong way. For me, what that really means is, people that care about me, people that want me to succeed, and they want to too. And they are also wanting to go where I want to go, right? They have the empowerment. They're not judgmental. And again, that core of who you surround yourself with, and where you go is very important. And more than likely, if you're doing that, you're giving, you're getting, and they're doing the same thing. And that's why I've always said,
don't be afraid to challenge each other. You
right.
know, like, I want to be with people that challenge me, not like aggressively, but like challenge me and check in on me and make sure, like, hey, you said you were going to do this and you haven't done it yet. Why? What's happening? Like,
right.
Get me back on track, Like,
well,
you need to have those ambitious
I mean,
people
and I've had
too.
friends who've known me since I was a kid. And when I was struggling in service, like, I'd reach out to them and they could call my bluff. And I happen to have a very empowered wife, no doubt. I mean, I think she was probably going to punch me in the face if I didn't get my life straight. While I had to do it for me, she used the impetus to push me over the edge. And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm also thankful that, she was like a single mother for 10, 12 years and did a phenomenal job. And these days, I try not to screw it up. I try to be a positive, but there's times I mess it up. But yeah, the world is a big place. I believe that there's plenty of room and places for everybody and every group to be who they are and thrive. The problem is when we try to force our ideas onto other people. And even though, I fought for America for 20 years, I would also say one of the great things is America sometimes, as a big culture, we do export some good things, but we also do some bad things as a culture that other people don't see overseas. Yeah. And we try to impress our values on people. And I'm like, why? Like, the world's a big place. Like, we don't have to do that, But again, it comes down to silos, putting people in things, and that's unfortunate. But these tools and what you're doing and what I'm trying to do is say, hey, you can be you can be real, and that's okay. And yes, you're going to have struggles, but have a team around you, be open, be honest. And I'm like you, like, be kind and move on, and just, it's okay to disagree. It doesn't mean we have to like get our guns.
Whenever people say something negative to you, here's the thing. It's like, if they say something that's off-colored, they're going to say it and they're going to like continue on their day. So it's up to you to just like continue on yours or let it stop you in your tracks, Right. And I just prefer to move on and use that as a platform to spread just more kindness and more validation to those out there that are trying, that like keep going because it's worth it.
Honestly, you've motivated me to be a better person today. I love it. Yay! But I love it because
the job here is done.
No, but I love it because you are who you are. And sometimes it's difficult in this world to find people that are just authentic and willing to share. I mean, for a lot of years, there's a part of me that's always been like that, but there was also a part of me that, like, I will say, I was playing the good soldier. And again, I love my career, but there's times today that I feel like I was acting, like I was just doing that. And now I feel that I have the freedom, not just to literally stay being not bad Jack, as I like to say, to be myself and to be comfortable and to go out there and just try to spread that and to make the world a better place. I think that's important for, again, all humans, because that's what we all are, and we need each other. And
it's just not worth it. It's just not worth your energy to do it any other way.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, this was so fun. I didn't know what to expect, and it was really cool to just have a good, awesome conversation. I feel like it's almost like cleansing. Now I'm going to go about my day even lighter.
Yeah, I feel empowered, and I always tell people, my podcast for me, if I screw it up for my guests or anybody else, it's therapy for me. Like literally, it's just to be able to talk and explore other people, or even if I'm just by myself talking about something, it's free therapy. That's what I call it. It's free therapy. I mean, I could go see a therapist, but why? I got more real stuff from you and great knowledge. And like I said, it's awesome. I mean, I feel, yeah, you're good at what you do. I love the fact you're confident. I actually love the fact of you're spreading the message. So good job.
Thank you. Likewise.
That's it. That's this edition of the Dark Side of Elite, powered by Performance Mountain. Stay classy, Nebraska. Stay calm, America.